Listen to Alfred.
Rail passengers are driving 21 miles from Shaftesbury for a better train service. Now our town's residents, unhappy with rail reliability from Gillingham, are being urged to complain. The Salisbury to Exeter Rail User Group provides a voice for North Dorset's train passengers. They've been monitoring services on the route through Gillingham and Salisbury. Taking disruption caused by the December strikes into account, the group claim there's a 75% chance that passengers will travel on a day when South Western Railway fail to meet their punctuality target. Shaftesbury resident Roy Mitchell represents our town's railway users as the Gillingham representative on the Rail User Group. He's concerned that Shaftesbury travellers might give up on trains because of issues which have plagued the line lately. Whilst buses connect Shaftesbury for the 5-mile journey to Gillingham station, some residents who need to reach the capital by train are being forced to drive further.
What is apparent to me, talking to people, is that more and more people are actually now driving to Salisbury and picking a train up to London from there. Because the service from Salisbury is twice as good as it is from Gillingham. The trains tend to be less crowded because half the trains, every alternate train actually starts in Salisbury, so you get a seat in it when it starts. So there is evidence that people are driving to Salisbury, especially during the strike time, rather than wait at Gillingham and have to change again in Salisbury.
Roy says the frequency of trains has increased over the years, but Shaftesbury locals tell him they can't depend on the service now.
Well, they're generally not too happy with it. I mean, going back 40 years, the service was 8 trains a day to London. So it's increased dramatically over the last 40 years. Now we've got over 20 trains a day. But the problem is that reliability is suffering. We've had the strikes of last month, which reduced the service down to a 2-hourly link to Salisbury. And there is also problems with not only reliability, but some of the trains, which are increasingly older, breaking down, problems with staff availability sometimes. So general service is struggling, and it's fair to say, because more trains come on the line, it puts more pressure on the single-track sections. One train delayed at Salisbury, say, where it's single-track, it can throw the entire service west of Salisbury out, all the way to Exeter.
The rail user groups say locomotives and carriages are the oldest in mainline service in the country, but there are still no plans to replace this rolling stock. The group now intend to draw up a train specification and lobby for cleaner, more reliable trains to replace the 30-year-old diesel units. Roy believes the service has got worse since First Bus took over the franchise with their South Western Railway in 2018.
And there's been a slow deterioration of service, some of which is due to the fact the rolling stock's older, some of which is due to the fact that Network Rail have got responsible for track and signalling. There's been some weaknesses on that as well. There's different policy which South West Railway seems to have on maintenance, etc., about how often they maintain trains. But there has been unquestionably a decline. Since Stagecoach operated, I mean, Stagecoach won lots of awards when they ran the franchise. First Group haven't.
The Transport Secretary has announced that Northern Rail's operations will be reviewed at the end of this month, and that provider could lose its franchise. Roy believes South Western Railway is in a similarly precarious position and could be replaced.
South Western Railway recorded a loss of £137 million in the last financial year. This must be a possibility. I'm not saying it would do any particularly good, because the main problem still remains with train availability, track and signalling, and that won't change no matter who actually runs the rolling stock. There's also a fact that if Northern Rail has to go into government ownership, and then South Western Railway, where are the people to manage these new franchises? And the answer is, it's the same people who run them now.
SWR has recently announced a new MD, and the Rail User Group say he is experienced. They believe his role is to turn the franchise into an efficient passenger-focused railway. They say they wish him well, but add their scepticism might be understood. Fares rose again at the beginning of January, and the RMT union is now considering further strike action in February or March over who closes the doors. So if Shaftesbury commuters or rail users, perhaps infrequent users of the service, are unhappy, there's a perception that it's a Gillingham problem, I suppose, because that's where the railway station is. What do you want Shaftesbury people to do?
Well, Shaftesbury people, it's really a case of to continue to support the service, I think, and make their feelings known where things are wrong. Ultimately, the service is an essential feature, I think, of North Dorset life, and it needs to get back to the standard it was just 3 years ago.
We offered South Western Railway a chance to respond. They replied the next day to say they disputed the figures, but they were unable to offer more information within our 24-hour response deadline.
Listen to Alfred.